Welcome to BuzzLogic Vino Diaries, where influencers talk and I taste. I'm your host, Valerie Combs, and we're here at District Wine Bar with a guest that I'm very excited to welcome, Jeremiah Owyang, who is a senior analyst at Forrester Research and also the author of a very popular and well-known blog, Web Strategy. So welcome, Jeremiah.
Hey, thanks for having me. I can't refuse a really nice wine and some good conversation.
Absolutely. So we are tasting, and we are tasting a Bordeaux right now, and this is Chateau de Gaillet. Did I say it right? I think so. This is a Bordeaux, I think, from the Right Bank area, and it's a blend of 60% Cab and 40% Merlot.
All right, let's give it a shot.
Let's taste.
Okay, cheers.
Okay, cheers.
Smells fruity.
Yeah, I think so too. Kind of cherry.
Yeah. But it's pretty dark taste.
Wow, it's really good. Of course, I'm not really known to dislike any wine, but
A lot of body.
yes. Now, would you say, how would you characterize your love for wine?
Wine is part of my evening meals. I love it. It's great for the heart. You know, it gets you relaxed and.
I mean, that's the main reason you drink it, for the heart benefits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a great pastime, and my wife and I love to drink the wines.
Yes, yes. And you prefer red
Love
over
the
white?
reds. Definitely love the reds.
Right. So let's kick things off talking a little bit about kind of your history and kind of how you came to be such a kind of aficionado and expert in social media. How did your love for social media actually start?
Yeah, well, I used to work at Hitachi, and I deployed the social media program there. And I was there for 3 years, and then I went to PodTech with Robert Scoble. I was the director of corporate media strategy. And then the whole time during that point, I was blogging. And then recently I joined Forrester, and I'm an analyst over the social media space. So it's really great. I get to wake up in the morning with a smile on my face, covering the industry that I love.
Yeah. Well, what about it? What's the thing that most excites you about it? Yeah.
The interaction. This type of interaction, it happens online now.
Yeah.
We're not drinking wine together, but we are sharing experiences. We are talking to each other, and I just think it's a really fascinating part of our culture.
Yeah.
And and also the impacts it has to business. Which is I'm a business major, so that very much interests me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, just putting on your Forrester hat and just asking you a quick question. I mean, you're talking to clients every day. You're talking to businesses every day. I mean, in your mind, what is sort of the number one marketing opportunity, from a marketing or advertising perspective, that businesses are maybe missing out on today as it relates to social media? Right.
So there's a lot of tools out there that are gaining adoption. A lot of marketers haven't figured out, number one, how to use them. But from the advertising angle, they haven't figured out how to sponsor them or to do brand interaction with them. Now, there's a fine balance before doing that. You don't want to disrupt the experience with overloading it with brands. But there is an opportunity for marketers. For example, the biggest opportunity that I see being missed is advertising and branding on widgets on Facebook. So you don't really see a lot of big brands doing that yet, but their adoption is there. If you add up all the widget networks and the amount of views that they're getting, it can be more than some of the largest websites collectively.
But do you really think that consumers, and I'm just thinking of myself, as an example, a Facebook user interacting with a widget, what would really that experience be like? I mean, what would be the expectation of the consumer engagement with the brand in that context?
I got it. Yeah, so there's two things that make a successful widget. Let's start with that. The first one, there's a level of interaction.
Right.
It actually does something for you. It's not something you look at, touch, and walk away from. It actually has a useful or entertaining application to it. Right. Secondly, it has social hooks. So it touches with your friends, and it becomes more powerful and more interesting as you share it with your friends in your network. That's why those quizzes become so exciting.
Yeah.
A quiz on your own, really not that great.
Yeah.
But when you really put it towards your network,
yes,
then people want to say, oh, who's the most popular?
Yeah.
Who's the best wine drinker?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So I mean, what's an example of a widget that you think's been done really well besides the quizzes?
So the vampires one, Don't Buy Me.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is a very, very popular one. That's actually a role-playing game. So there's an interaction part. It's kind of like a contest. It's a game, and you share with your friends. So what was, in my opinion, very innovative is the scary movie, the vampire movie called 30 Days Night. They ended up rebranding and sponsoring that widget. So they use an already successful network, and they put their brand on top of it. And I thought that was a great creative way to extend the brand there.
Yeah.
And it probably, hopefully, didn't interfere with the experience of the widget, but added to it.
Right. Well, would you say though there's only kind of a certain, some of the discussion I hear is there's only really certain kinds of brands that have that sort of existing kind of relationship or the kind of look and feel to their brand where it makes sense to do something like that? Because let's just say with the vampire example, I mean, how many brands would really be able to cleverly take advantage of something like that?
Right. So there's two ways to look at it. The first way is, do you look at an application around your product set, or do you go to the next level, which is lifestyle? So for every product, no matter how boring it is, there's a lifestyle associated with it. So you have to go up a level and think about it. You know, what is interesting at the next level up?
Right.
Even nuts and bolts.
What are kind of your thoughts for some, and potentially from an advertising point of view?
Well, we did some predictions, and we actually published a doc on that. That's coming out soon. And the social graph will be portable. So if you don't know what the social graph is, it's the representation of your online network in the form of the social network. And so let's say you and I are sites like Bebo, maybe even LinkedIn, business oriented.
Right.
The next level is, it means that you take your social network with you wherever you go on the web. So now all of a sudden these boring static websites now have social features to them. That's the big picture.
Wow.
So
and is that something from a technology perspective that's relatively easy to sort of implement, or will that take the work of a lot of different kinds of technology providers coming together to make that possible?
The latter is definitely it. The technology, the APIs. When the euro came around to Europe, getting everybody to agree on their currency and then adopt it. Printing the money was no problem. So it's very much in that same sense.
Now, what do you think the implications will be on, let's say, people who use social networks to kind of show different sides of themselves? So, for example, I may show a different side of myself on LinkedIn than I do on MySpace. Will the idea of a portable social graph interrupt sort of those walls that some people self-impose?
So theoretically, it should have permissions based upon those different facets. That's really what it's called, the different faces of your social graph. So there should be permissions set up. So I count at least 4 of them: personal, family, business, and then public.
Okay.
So there should be permissions around those 4, and there should be the variations to do whatever you decide to change it up as well.
Right. Got it. Do you see, it's kind of similar to that note, but do you see, one thing that we think about a lot is, are blogs and social networks actually sort of merging? I mean, do you see there being a point in time where consumers and people who are creating content don't necessarily need to maintain all these different points of presence across the web, and really being able to self-publish? Why does that have to be mutually exclusive from being a part of a social network?
Right. The way I like to look at it is not about the tools themselves, but actually the content. So the content is becoming amorphous. It's taking forms and many different shapes, but it doesn't necessarily have to reside in one specific tool.
Right.
So to answer your question is, yes, they're merging and morphing into something new constantly, and you can see conversations start on Twitter, move to the blogs, then mainstream media, and then finally to an analyst report.
Right.
I mean, it really happens.
Yeah.
And then once we post the report, it starts all over, and something else, another conversation happens. So it's just flowing, ebbing, and moving and about.
Yeah. Well, you bring up mentioning Twitter. Now, what are some of the social media tools that you find yourself most addicted to?
A better phrase, what are the social media tools that I'm trying to stop using?
Right, exactly.
Twitter is
cold turkey.
That, yes.
Yeah, Twitter.
Twitter is very addicting.
What is it about it that's so addicting?
It's the instantaneous feedback.
Yeah.
It's it's like hanging out with your friends and having all these conversations. It's like trying to escape a coffee shop where all your friends are. It's a very social thing. It's addicting.
Yeah. Do you see sort of the social networking or the Facebook phenomenon sort of dying down in 2008 at all, or do you see it
no, not at all. It's just getting started.
Yeah.
It's just getting started.
Yeah.
Facebook's on a real vertical ramp.
Right. Very cool. Well, thank you very much for joining me. This was very, very informative and interesting. I'm Valerie Combs, BuzzLogic Vino Diaries. See you next time.